A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, Dark Machine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Story number 1, written by Eurodon. Another Way Home. The methods to travel faster than light are as varied as species in the universe. Of the dozens of alien species that have achieved the feat, no two are precisely the same. Oh, there are some that are similar. The Grenelec and the Nubricant both have a variation of a pulse drive. We have an array system similar to the Roar, and the Kalth have a tricol engine which functions much like the Brindle Enketh engine. The humans are unique that they use many different drives from different species. They had, technically, created their own original design, of course. It was completely unusable in the long term, but it had functioned, and that was enough to earn them the right to travel the stars alongside us and the others. We were excited, of course. It's always exciting to have new species break free from the limits of light. We'd been monitoring them for years, expecting just this. We had translators ready, diplomats who had been studying their various cultures. Quite a shock, that. Standing by uncloaked vessels and congratulatory displays waiting at their intended destination. Nobody was expecting the chaos that came from their, fissure system. It would tear a hole in space, creating a wormhole of sorts. It had been theorized by other species, of course, but the humans were the first to actually create it. And by the council decree, they were the last as well. I was with senior diplomat Gurgotha, watching the feed as the humans created a crack in the universe and then drove into it. We were focused on the miraculous sight of the vessel flying through an open space and vanishing. A cheer went up across the bridge as an electric crackle formed in front of us, and then it died as we saw what lay at the side. For a moment, none of us spoke. I couldn't turn away from the sight of undulating flesh. It was writhing and flowing and sloughing. I felt my stomach quiver at the sight of it, but it was nothing compared to the sensation of nausea that swept over, not just me, but the entire bridge, as the flesh began to bulge and distort, the human vessel clawing its way to freedom. Tendrils of flesh and muscle and bone mounded over the ship as it began to breach the surface. For a moment, it was all we could see, but all the pressure of that horrible, twisting flesh could not hold it. The flesh gave, the muscle tore, the sinew snapped, and bones cracked and shattered as the humans burst free. Scraps of the terrible flesh hanging from the vessel as it sped from the portal. The vessel was draped in blood and fluids. From the frame of the vessel was dented and bent. It hurtled past us, apparently blind and desperate to escape. It had more sense than us. We were stuck frozen at the sight before us. We didn't begin to react until the flesh began to mound up around the edge of the portal, flowing free beyond it. And then it began to reach for what was closest to it. Mass! The Grenelec vessel had just begun to move and the seething mass grasped it. The flesh wrapped around it, began to cover it, and began to drag it back, all at the same time. The bridge descended into chaos as more tendrils of flesh began to reach out for others, for our ship. Beside me, the ambassador's intel system failed from the horror of the scene before him. I scarcely noticed him collapsed. The captain was shouting orders, the crew was panicking, and all I could think was that there was no way that I could look away. The Grenelec vessel began to hemorrhage escape pods, some of them struggling unsuccessfully to burst free from the flesh that had mounded all over them. Others found smaller tendrils reaching out for them as well. Alerts began to blare. The Kalth were panicking and had turned into direct collision calls for our vessel, even as the Holneck and Brindle-powered weapons. The Grenelec vessel's center collapsed, almost splitting the vessel in two. Then all of it went to the great howls as the Cat vessel slammed into us. The central bridge crashed into our engines, leaving us dead in the sea, while they left themselves blind and leaderless. I was thrown to the floor and struggled to rise, touching my head and finding blood. The lights went to emergency, but the screen remained up. Beams began to slice into the flesh, cutting massive gouges into the tendril that was towing the beleaguered Genelec vessel to its doom. Missiles slammed into the central mass of the portal mouth, sending out great gouts of ichor. It might as well have been a child throwing leaves. The wounds healed, and more tendrils reached out. One of the snaking limbs swatted a missile, losing only its tip before slamming into the advancing brindle vessel. A moment later, great explosions rocked the ship, its missiles exploding at tubes openings. The hull-neck vessel burned the tentacle that reached for it, and began slicing anything that came near it, at the same time firing its engines in reverse to withdraw. Our own ship was seized, and I barely held myself aloft. Only one vessel was advancing under its own power towards the gaping maw. The humans, their vessel had turned while we weren't watching, and now it was driving towards the rip it had created in the universe with as much fervor as it had when fleeing from it. Dozens of tentacles grasped it, seizing it, trying to crush it, but it pulled through them, electricity surging over the front of the ship as it powered the fissure system. The ship's engines cut out, its reverse boosters flaring as it fired the shot into the center of that hideous mass. The colossus of flesh shuddered, then convulsed. The outer edge of the crack sealed, great spurts of blood and fluid flying into space as the flesh was cut from the unspeakable realm. Our ship was whipped around like a toy, the inertial dampeners barely holding. And then it all ceased, but the twitching. The mass that had forced itself out of the portal relaxed, letting slip the parts of the Genelec vessel that had barely avoided an unthinkable fate. Around us, ships pulled themselves free from the tentacle that had been dragging them. Incoming message from the very human vessel, audio only. The watchstander turned, looking at Grogotho, only to find his corpse. He reddened in shock, but then found me. I nodded, and he patched the audio through. Alien vessels. Fissure reads as closed. Repeat, fissure reads as closed. I think we managed to seal it before any ships were dragged inside. There was a pause in the transmission, requesting alternate method to return home. End of story. Story number 2. Sports Day, written by Redshift Razor. Jeremy, I hear that your children are soon to be participating in a sports day. You must be rejoicing at finally having the opportunity to see which of your offspring are the strongest, no? I must ask, will the weaker offspring be culled normally, or will you just let the strongest offspring consume them? Well, what do you have bets on? Blue, what the fuck are you on about? Have I offended you in some way, Jeremy? I'm merely asking which one of your offspring you would least like to see devoured. It is not really insulting, right? Have you perhaps considered that I don't want to see any of my offspring devoured? Oh, come off it, Jeremy. We can't always be so naive. Most parents are ready to sacrifice the whole clutch by the second day, save for a few exceptional infants. So, out with it, which of your kids is your favorite? Blue, I think there's been a massive misunderstanding here. Sports Day is an event where your child competes against other children in their class, not... What? They compete against other clutches as well. Tell me, Jeremy, how many winners are there in a Sports Day festival? Well, there's 3, but you'll misunderstand. 3? 3 offspring out of how many clutches? Zarlax almighty, you humans are hardcore. No wonder you guys have high stamina. Anyone who even slightly fell behind was devoured. Blue, we don't devour offspring. Well, they'll be culled either way. Tell me, Jeremy, do the fabled human rights not apply to your offspring? Blue, just let me speak. Some human rights don't apply to offspring, like freedom to and freedom to live. You didn't answer my question. Of which offspring would you prefer to survive your hellhole on the coming of age ceremony? You know what? You're completely right. I guess sacrificing a vast majority of our children is slightly cruel. I guess, but live and let live, you know. That's what the Galactic Assembly is built off of, right? To judge other species over traditions, such as brutally murdering the vast majority of children, would be hypocritical, especially considering that we do the same. Jeremy Jr.
Excuse me?
He's my son, the one I want to win Sports Day.
Ah, of course, it would be the one named after yourself. You humans do have a narcissistic streak after all. Though, considering what it took to reach adulthood, I don't blame you guys one bit. End of chapter.
And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.